Hello everybody, welcome to our channel Medi-Concept. Today we will discuss about mineralocorticoid. Mineralocorticoids are the adrenal steroids which act on the minerals or the electrolytes, particularly over the sodium and the potassium. It promotes the sodium retention and potassium excretion from the kidney. This function is crucial for maintaining the fluid and the electrolyte balance in our body. Body secretes mainly the aldosterone as the mineralocorticoid, though 11-deoxycorticosteroid has some mineralocorticoid activity. It is synthesized as a intermediary product during the aldosterone synthesis process. All of we know that aldosterone, these mineralocorticoids are synthesized from the zona glomerulosa of the adrenal cortex. Okay. Aldosterone, our mineralocorticoids are 21 carbon products which have plasma half-life around 20 minutes. Okay. In the plasma, 40% of the aldosterone it circulates in the free form, whereas 60% remain in bound form, and it is weakly bound to the specific aldosterone binding globulin, transcortin and the albumin. Okay. Now coming to the function of the aldosterone. Now aldosterone has the main target cell which is located at the collecting duct of the renal tubule, and this is a principal cell. As it is a steroid hormone, it can easily cross the cell membrane and binds with its cytosolic receptor. The receptor and the hormone complex now migrate to the nucleus where it binds with specific hormone responsive element. Binding will lead to the transcription of specific gene leading to synthesis of the mRNA. That mRNA will go out of the nucleus and go to the ribosome where specific proteins are synthesized. Now what are the different proteins those are synthesized? The main important protein that is synthesized by the aldosterone is the epithelial sodium channels, which got inserted into the luminal side of the principal cells. Through this ENaC or the epithelial sodium channels, the sodium ions move and get entered inside the cell. Okay. The second important protein that gets activated or increased in the number is the sodium potassium ATPase at the basal side of the principal cell, through which this entered sodium go to the extracellular space into the interstitium, and potassium ion moves entered into the cell. This potassium ion will go outside through the Romke channel, whereas the sodium from the interstitium get absorbed into the peritubular capillary and enter into the circulation. Another important protein synthesized by the aldosterone are the different proteins involved in the electron transport chain in the mitochondria, so as to provide or to synthesize the ATP needed for the continuous activity of this sodium potassium ATPase. So this is the genomic action of the aldosterone, which is comparatively a slower process and takes around 20 to 40 minutes for the new protein synthesis. But aldosterone also have some faster activity, and which is mediated via some non-genomic actions. So it is fast and it is mediated via some second messenger system like the cyclic AMP or the phosphatidylinositol or the IP3 system. Though the exact mechanism or in which cell it acts, it is not precisely known. The target of the aldosterone is the alpha intercalated cell present at the collecting duct of the renal tubule, where it increases the activity of the hydrogen ATPase and the hydrogen potassium ATPase favoring the hydrogen ion secretion into the tubular fluid and excretion through the urine. So in the body we are losing the hydrogen ion, so hydrogen ion it will be lost, and so the pH in our blood it will be raised. That means excess of aldosterone it will cause the alkalosis. Okay, now for the each molecule of hydrogen ion secretion at the tubular fluid, there will be one molecule of bicarbonate. It will get enter into the interstitium of the renal tubule. Okay, so these are the main two target cells of the aldosterone. So if we make a gist, that aldosterone increases the renal tubular reabsorption of the sodium, and it also causes the secretion of the potassium. Now whenever the sodium ion it is reabsorbed, the water follows it osmotically, so the water it will also get reabsorbed. So whenever there is excess of aldosterone, that increased water will increase the extracellular fluid volume and ultimately increase the blood pressure. But the excess aldosterone they have a small effect on the plasma sodium ion concentration, because if the aldosterone level remains elevated for few days, there will be pressure natriuresis favoring the sodium ion excretion at the urine, so that the sodium ion concentration remains normal. And another important point is that whenever the sodium is absorbed, osmotically water is also drawn into the blood, so the concentration level of the sodium it doesn't get elevated during the aldosterone excess. The excess aldosterone also causes the hypokalemia because of the increased excretion of potassium into the urine, and that hypokalemia it will produce the muscle weakness, whereas the aldosterone deficiency may cause the hyperkalemia, that means increased potassium ion level at the blood, and it may produce the cardiac toxicity. Excess of aldosterone also increases the tubular hydrogen ion secretion, so that it may produce the alkalosis, particularly metabolic alkalosis. So what happens during the aldosterone escape, or what is the escape phenomena? So aldosterone escape phenomena refers to the escape of the kidney from the salt retaining effect of excess administration or secretion of aldosterone, as in the cases of the primary hyperaldosteronism. That means whenever the aldosterone level it remains elevated for few days, then the salt retaining effect of the aldosterone will not be there. The escape will be there from the salt retaining effect of the excess aldosterone. This is called the aldosterone escape or escape phenomena. So how this escape occurs? So whenever there is increased aldosterone level, that causes increased or excess reabsorption of water and sodium from the renal tubules, that increases the extracellular fluid volume, increases the blood pressure. Now whenever the blood pressure it is raised, it will produce the pressure natriuresis and the pressure diuresis, whereas the increased fluid volume it will also causes the release of the natriuretic peptide from the cardiac muscle because of the stretch. So both of this effect it will favor the excretion of sodium and the water through urine, and so that the ECF volume it comes to the normal. We have a separate lecture over the pressure natriuresis. You can find the link at the above and at the description box. Next, aldosterone it is important for the essential for our life, because if there is deficiency of the aldosterone, less sodium and the water it will be reabsorbed, so it will cause the decrease in the extracellular fluid volume, so that will ultimately cause a decrease in blood volume, cardiac dysfunction and the circulatory shock. Whereas the deficiency of aldosterone also causes increase in the potassium ion concentration in the extracellular fluid, that will cause a hyperkalemia and cardiac toxicity, may produce the arrhythmia and the cardiac death. So both of these situations may lead to the death of the subject. So that is why aldosterone, it is essential for life. Now coming to the regulation of aldosterone secretion. Whenever there is hyperkalemia, that means increase in the potassium ion concentration in our body, or hyponatremia, that is decrease in the sodium ion concentration in our blood or body, and decrease in the extracellular fluid volume, all of these three factors will ultimately stimulate the juxtaglomerular apparatus present at the kidney, so that the renin, it is secreted from the JG cells, which will now convert the angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1, and this angiotensin 1, while passing through the pulmonary circulation, it will be acted upon by the angiotensin converting enzyme, and it will now produce the angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 will stimulate the cells at the zona glomerulosa of the adrenal cortex and produce the aldosterone. Now aldosterone will cause retaining of the sodium ion, excretion of the potassium ion, and also the water, it will be reabsorbed. So ultimately the potassium ion concentration, sodium ion concentration, and the water level in our body, it will come to the normal, which will now cause the feedback inhibition of the synthesis of renin. So in a nutshell, that increase in the potassium or the hyperkalemia and increase in angiotensin 2 in the extracellular fluid, these are the two main important stimulator or the regulator for the aldosterone secretion. Whenever there is increase in the sodium ion concentration occurs, which are very slight effect over the aldosterone secretion and causes a minute decrease in the aldosterone secretion. ACTH, it is also important and necessary for the aldosterone secretion, but its role, it is minimum. So the main regulators of aldosterone secretion is the hyperkalemia and the angiotensin 2. Okay. Thank you. If you have any question, you can ask in the comment section. Like the video, share the video, and if you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe and press the bell button to get notified about our new video uploads. Thank you.